Hey, Tony Gatton here. Want to pop in and touch on something that I hear a lot about often and just give my perspective on it. Everybody has a different take on it. Everybody has a right to their own perspective and how they see things. But when I look at the feminine and the masculine, a lot of times I see that sometimes feminine is painted as weak and seductive. And then sometimes masculine is painted as toxic and controlling. But the feminine and the masculine should go together. They should fit hand in hand and they should complement one another. And so when I look at the feminine, the thing that makes a woman feminine or the attributes that create a feminine energy, a feminine aura, to me, the one most identifying attribute is nurture, the ability to nurture, the ability to have emotions and feelings in the areas of attention and care. And I think that is a feminine trait that is really strong, really, it's magnified in the feminine more so than in the masculine. And the masculine has that same trait, but it shows up differently. So the feminine really is the listener, not just the hearer, but the listener, the feeler. And I believe that's why femininity goes with female and feminine and woman, because for a woman to carry out what she was created to carry out, not what she was created to carry out, but one of the major tasks, one of the major callings of a woman is to give birth or to nurture life. So if a woman cannot give birth, she still is able and capable of loving and nurturing life, building life, growing life, whether that's as a surrogate mother or a foster mother, an adopted mom. A woman carries a child and then her body can feed that child. And so when you think about the ability for the human mind to adapt, to adjust from being one being to being multiple beings in one, because a woman could be carrying multiple children at the same time. So for the female mind to go from having the feelings and everything, all of the functions of one being, to then have multiple beings, that is a mighty, mighty task. And being a man, I can't imagine it. So that shows me in itself how different the male is from the female. I cannot imagine as a male other beings being developed inside of my body and being fed and nurtured and nourished by my body, being directly affected by my everyday existence while those beings are inside of me. And then to give birth to those beings, those human beings, to give birth and then to care for and nurture for those beings around the clock. So see, in my mind, the feminine is really tapping into the nurturing ability. Feminine has nothing to do with seduction. Feminine has nothing to do with weakness. Because what do we hear a lot about today? Emotional intelligence. Imagine the level of emotional intelligence that a person has to carry other human beings in their body for several months. And then to have to go through an uncomfortable and or painful experience to birth those human beings, but also to risk losing those children in the process of caring and nurturing those children while the children are in the body. Every single day, a woman could face a miscarriage. She has no guarantees. She has there's no certainty about how this is going to play out. She does not know if the child will have special needs, disabilities. There's no way for her to know until she gets down further along in the process. And then, even when she is told, she's not being told by God. It's not like Mother Mary being visited by God and Joseph being visited by an angel. She's hearing from a human who is oftentimes wrong. There's many of us with children who a human told us our child will never walk, our child will never talk, our child will never play a sport. And at that time, we could have aborted that child. We could have thrown in the towel. But we said, no, we're going to go anyways. And we're going to believe and trust God. And then our child turns out to be just fine. Or the child turns out the way the human said the child would turn out, but there's still an overwhelming amount of love for having this child exist in the world. And it shifts and changes the lives of the parents. So imagine if emotional intelligence had to have a face. Do you think that face should be a man who as a man, my largest call in life is to provide for my family. I'm a man. I'm a man. Like I'm not a woman in a man's body. I'm a man. And as a man, I'm trying to think about the hardest thing that I have to do in my life right now. The most stressful thing is having to take care of adults. That's the most stressful thing, is the fact that my mother and my mother-in-law cannot take care of themselves, or don't take care of themselves, or can't earn the money that they need based on their education or whatever to provide a living for themselves, or however. And that costs me about $5,000 a month to take care of those individuals. That's more stressful to me than taking care of my own kids, because I brought them in the world. Now, as a man, I also will have worries about my child having something wrong with my child. But I have to realize, as a man, I don't have to carry that child. I have to realize as a man, all I did was release sperm into my wife, which for me was very, very pleasurable. And then my wife had to take that in, and her body fertilized, the sperm fertilizes her egg. And then from that moment forward, discomfort mixed with a euphoric pleasure that she has to choose. Because when I remember my wife giving birth to our first child, she was in excruciating pain. We went to a doctor. We were less fortunate, so we didn't have insurance. We had to get on Medicaid, and we went to this doctor, and the guy never even looked at my wife. He never even looked up. We walked in, and he said, "What's wrong with you?" His head was at the desk. He was like, "My back is really hurting." He said, "Okay." And he wrote something on a paper, and he handed it to her. She got it. She took it to the thing. We went to a doctor. So we're thinking, okay, this doctor knows what he is doing. He never even looked at us, shook our hand, anything. The place was flooded. You could tell everybody in there was from the hood, from the trailer parks, from just the bottom. And they just were running people through there, just getting money off the government. And the pills she got, I believe, were like 800 milligrams. And she went into premature labor 2.5 months early. We later looked at that pill bottle, and on the back of it, it said, "Do not take these pills in your third trimester." And so what the other doctor told us later, the doctor who gave birth, when she told her, she was like, "Is there any medicine or anything you was taking?" And she told her the medicine she was taking, and the doctor was like, "What? A doctor prescribed you that?" And she was like, "Yeah." So the medicine had corroded her cervix, or whatever you call it. And that's what caused her to start to dilate, if that's what you call it. And then that's what sent her into premature labor 2.5 months early. And our son was born 2 pounds, 10 ounces. And as a man, I felt it, but I masked it. I ran from it. It made me indulge in other things, like just trying to escape. I bought some 22-inch rims. I started selling drugs. I was running from the feeling. But my wife, she bore down, and she went to that hospital, to the intensive care unit, the NICU, neonatal intensive care unit. She went in there every day. And I kept going to work, making $9.50 an hour, 5 days a week. But when I wasn't at work, I didn't want to go to the NICU because I didn't want to feel it. But my wife was in there, in the trenches, right beside the bed. She felt every feeling that could be felt. And that's what 90% of women have to do or choose to do. You're going to have those women who typically, when I see it, they have a drug problem or they were abused. As men, my life was perfect growing up. Never abused, no drugs. And look how I acted. And when I look at other men, I see very similar things. And so that helps me understand that the feminine is not weak. The feminine is not less than. It's different than. But it's not weak. And when it's a weak, when the Bible says weaker vessel, it doesn't mean emotionally weaker. It means physically weaker. Meaning if I arm wrestle my wife, I'm going to win. If we the same, if we similar in size and strength, I'm gonna win. Now, I'm pretty sure there's a woman who has lifted and trained or just naturally strong that can beat me in an arm wrestle. But if a man who has done just as much training as her or the same size and strength of her, he will beat her in an arm wrestle. So the weaker vessel, when you really look at what's being done, it lets you know clearly that it does not mean a dumber vessel. It does not mean a less capable vessel. It does not mean a less emotionally intelligent vessel. It does not mean that, because you can look at life and see that's not what it means. And so the feminine to me is the nurturing capability, the ability to be an empath, the ability to feel, the ability to nurture, the ability to care, to caress, and to manifest, meaning to bring forth, to bring to life. That's what the feminine means to me. It's nothing about seduction, because seduction is more like deception. And so I think we need to be more clear on feminine and what femininity is. So the feminine feels. So if you are a woman and you punch your son in the chest and you won't hug your son, kiss your son, and allow him to cry and allow him to feel, but you're trying to posture like what you believe a man postures as, and you're trying to reenact masculinity and deliver that to your son, that's when you're not being in your feminine and you're operating in the masculine. Now, the masculine to me means to protect. And to protect also means to provide. So to me, masculine does not mean cold. Masculine does not mean hard. Masculine does not mean fearless. Masculine does not mean that you don't have doubt or worry. Masculine does not mean that you don't feel. Masculine means that you feel, you fear, you doubt, you wonder, you worry, but then you choose faith over fear. And you choose courage over doubt. And you go in spite of the things that you may be feeling. And you do, and you produce, and you bring back that you have went out to hunt and gather. And you provide. But you don't bask in it. You don't gloat in it. You don't weaponize your ability to hunt. And in the world, the food is what you hunt for. The money is what you earn. But in your house, the masculine is the gentle beast, the tame lion, the gentle giant. In the home, your strength is in your gentleness. So when you think of masculine and think about like a cartoon, right? If you think about like a depiction, we depict like, what's that thing? Shrek, or like Beauty and the Beast. So imagine the Beast and Shrek being masculine. And you have these big hands. You got these really big hands. And imagine this beast who can go out and hunt and just in a swipe, just whoosh, just destroy and devour. Imagine that beast coming home and using that same force, grabbing the beauty to hug her, grabbing the kid. You see what I mean? So this huge hand that could just grab and snatch the life out of a being and render it lifeless for the sake of protection of the castle or whatever it may be. Imagine that same force being used, rubbing the daughter's head, rubbing the son's back. You see what I mean? So as a masculine being in your home, your strength is in your gentleness. So I can be tough in business. I can be tough in the world. But when I come home, my sons also need to see, and if you have daughters, they need to see that you're human. They need to see that you feel. They need to see that you have emotions. And they need to see you process these emotions. See, that's masculinity. I went to have a talk with my son. He was 6 years old. And in talking to him, I was talking to him about crying or something like that. And in this talk, I shared with him pain and what pain is. And I shared with him different experiences. And I painted the picture of my father being his age and having his mother shot and killed. And that's what happened. And when my 6-year-old processed his mother, who does countless things for him, being shot and killed, and him only having me and everything his mother does being removed from his life, that is when he understood what real pain is. That's when he understood what the levels of pain are. So now he understands, okay, it's a type of pain to scratch my knee. It's a type of pain to slam my finger in the door. It's a type of pain to get a 90 on a test that I wanted 100. It's a type of pain to wish for this gift and not get it. But this is a different type of pain to lose your parent. When he heard that, it put it into perspective so that he could understand that us saying no, that he can't have money to buy coins on a game, is not something worth crying over. And the conversation was something in that realm of that it's okay to cry, but don't try to use tears as manipulation. And don't get your feelings hurt so easy, because life is going to deliver you so many more blows. And in the process of this conversation and me talking about these different experiences, I started to cry. And he started to cry. And later he went and told my wife, me and daddy cried together. But since that moment, my son has chosen his tears differently. And he doesn't cry to manipulate. He doesn't cry to get his way. He cries when he needs to cry. He cries when he feels like crying. And that's acceptable. That's okay. Because men cry. At 6 years old, he saw his dad cry. I probably was 14, 15 before I saw my dad cry, and it wasn't crying over feelings. He was crying in church, which probably was feelings, but I didn't see it like that. I didn't see him cry at a funeral. We went to several funerals. I'd never seen him cry at the funeral. But I saw him cry in church, in prayer. And so, me believing that a man can't cry and that a man can't show emotion, that's what led me to act out in other ways. That's what led me into a life of crime. That's what led me into being toxic and abusive in a relationship. Because if it doesn't come out in a healthy way, it's going to come out in an unhealthy way. And that's when I realized that the masculine isn't about bravado, machismo. The masculine is about being a willing servant, a protector, a provider, but a thankless servant, a unsung hero. The masculine exemplifies emotional intelligence like the feminine, but the feminine goes through very deep physical experiences as a woman. And the masculine goes through very deep emotional experiences as a protector and a provider. And so the masculine feels just as the feminine, but the two feel differently while yet still feeling the same. Meaning that it will show up in different ways and it'll be processed in different ways. And each will perceive it differently. And what we have to do is we have to find a respect for the opposite. So the feminine has to find a respect for the masculine. And the masculine has to find a respect for the feminine. So if my job as the masculine is to tap into my gifts and into my mind, which can see how to hunt and how to provide, and I can see that and it comes to me naturally and I can go and do that and I can produce that. If it doesn't come naturally for the feminine has to sit and look at that and respect that and say, you know what? I respect the fact that you can go out and selflessly provide for this household. And then the masculine has to say, I can respect the fact that you can selflessly give your body and your emotions and your feelings fully to this household. And although both will have to cross over, so the masculine will give in the same ways, in similar ways to the feminine, and the feminine will give in similar ways to the masculine. Meaning the feminine will also go out and provide and to bring money home. And the masculine will also feel and to be emotional and to nurture the children or the household. Meaning the masculine can wash dishes and cook a meal and mop the floor and do housework. The masculine can also change a diaper and feed a baby. The feminine can take out the trash and go out and work and make money. The two have to respect one another, have to have a mutual respect in order to coexist and to complement. In order for there to be a complement, meaning not a compliment, PLI, complement, PLE, you have to have a mutual respect for each other. And in doing that, I remember when I was writing my book, there's a difference between one another and each other. And one of them is between two people and the other is between multiple people. So you have to Google that and get that lesson. I just interchange them and I'm doing it incorrectly, so forgive me for that. And you have to have a mutual respect. And in doing so, now you can be compatible. So right now in my household, I earn the living. I go out and I create and I build to earn a living. This video will earn a living. And then my wife, she is the main source of care and nurture for our sons. So she gets up at 5 a.m. every morning while I'm asleep. And when she goes to bed, I'm up dreaming and planning and working. And so our schedules are different. And she takes them to school every morning. And then I take them to practice every evening. And so we help each other. She is comfortable and happy with her role. And she loves her role. And I am comfortable and happy with my role. She does not want to write books, create courses, do one-on-one coaching, do group coaching, do YouTube. She has no desire at all. I can't even pay her to want to come on YouTube and teach on her ways or her thoughts. People ask all the time, will your wife come on? No, she won't. She won't because she has no desire. She loves being a full-time wife and mother. She has no desire to go get a job. She has no desire to build a business in this season of her life. Because she told me, she said, if you're able to provide a living, then I want to be able to give 100% to our sons because this is only a season. And then when they are gone, then we can build all the business we want to together. Open a store, travel the world, do blogs together, write books together, do our podcast together. But I want to be 100 for our kids if I'm able. And that's her personality. Because you can't give 100 to everything. So if I'm doing 100 in my business, I'm going to miss some stuff. I'm going to be absent-minded to some things. I'm going to be aloof. I'm going to be kind of spaced out sometimes when my son is trying to talk to me and I have to snap back into it. And my mind is going to be on how I'm going to provide for my family sometimes when my son is talking to me. And that's the God's heaven truth. And if anybody is honest about this, I've seen some women say, oh, tell your wife she can be 100 at both. No, you can't. No, you can't. Or you think you being 100 at both. But if you running a 6-figure business as a woman, I guarantee you, your sons is not doing as much as our sons and straight A's, no A minuses. If you running a 6-figure business, I guarantee it. And unless they're going to a play school, they're not going to a school to where they doing work 3 grade levels ahead. My son in the 9th grade, he doing college freshman work and straight A's. and yet has an activity every single day of the week, 7 days a week, while maintaining straight A's. But that is because of my wife, that he's able to maintain those straight A's, because of her tutoring, because of her involvement, her investment, and then winning awards in school on the dress up days because of her creativity and because of her being 100% locked in. When it was time to dress up for homecoming week, my son and his friends, his group, they they blew it out of the water compared to the other kids. And you know why? Because the other moms are working. A lot of the other moms are working 40 hours a week. So they couldn't be as creative as my wife could be because she's not working 40 hours a week. And that's truth be told. That's truth be told. And I know no mom want to hear that. Like, my wife don't want to hear her ideas were more creative because she don't have to work 40 hours a week. She want credit for her creativity. And another mom don't want to hear that her ideas was less creative because she working 40 hours a week. But that's the mind. That's the mind. That's something that we can't argue with. We can't, if you arguing with that, you stuck in denial, and your life gonna stay stuck where it's at until you realize you can't be two places and be 100 in both places. It's just impossible. Something got to give. And so there is truth to, I got a video talking about that tomorrow for the men, about how when you out and you working, and it's from the voice recording that's going around on reels, talking to the man, but it's talking about men, we don't get the luxury of having time and money. That if we out making money, then we don't have all the time. And if we got all the time, then we probably ain't got all the money. But I was talking to men to say there is a way that you can find balance. That don't mean it's going to be 100. But there's a way you can find balance. There's a way you can make a living, but still be at your son's soccer games and at your son soccer practices or whatever kind of your daughter recitals or what have you, and you still providing for your family. But listen to me. This is where there has to be an understanding and a respect. So my wife does not want my position. And although I could get stressed in my position because I could be earning, and if my wife doesn't have a respect for me earning, then she will be spending more just as fast as I'm earning and spending more than I'm earning. And sometimes that happens to men, to the masculine, that we can be out and we feel like we never stretched ourselves super thin, and the feminine is just spending. And the feminine sees the masculine as, my wish is your command. But the masculine sees the feminine as, my wish is your command. And until we have a mutual respect, then we fail and we struggle. So the masculine may say, hey, my wish is your command. So the masculine may say, hey, I want to do this in the bedroom 4 nights a week. But if the masculine doesn't respect the fact that the feminine may be up to midnight helping the child with homework and tutoring the child midnight, then ironing clothes, folding clothes, doing all of this till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then waking up at 5 or 6 o'clock. So off of 4 or 5 hours of sleep. So the next day, everything affects everything. She doesn't have the energy at night to perform the way he wants her to perform. And until the masculine has a respect for the feminine and what the feminine is producing in the world, then it will feel like abuse. And the other way around, if the feminine sees the masculine as the provider, until the feminine looks at the masculine and appreciates the fact that the masculine is working to no end and maxing himself out and doing everything he possibly can to make every dollar he can for this household until the feminine respects the masculine and the emotional toll that it takes to provide, which is not the same emotional toll that it may take to give birth, but to provide is something you do every day. To give birth is something you do for 9 months, 10 months. And then you nurture the child and you're there for the child, but with each day, each passing day, it gets a little easier. With the provision, it can get a little easier as well, but those seasons will change. Just like raising a child, those seasons will change. So it takes a respect to say what you do is not easy. So because what you do is not easy, I'm not going to exhaust you any further. I'm not going to ask so much of you that it exhausts you any further than you are exhausted. And what I'm going to do is try to create a safe space to ease some of your stress, to ease some of the stuff that you may be dealing with. So for me, being a provider, what I may do is I tell my wife, hey, whatever. I remember I was telling her, if you look in the account and there's $60 in the account and that's what it costs to get your feet done, go get your feet done. So I said that. Now, when she goes and does it, I might have regretted. But then that's where my emotional intelligence has to come in and say, hey, I said this. I'm capable of providing. Let me go earn. So then I go earn. But keep your facials up. Keep your hands up. Keep your feet up. Keep your massages going, because that will alleviate just a little bit. That will alleviate some of the stressors of being a mom. And yes, although these are our responsibilities, it does not mean that stress does not come with it. It does not mean that frustration doesn't come with it. That's a part of responsibilities. Why? Because we're human. And the same thing goes with being a provider. Just because this is my responsibility does not mean that it's easy and that no stress comes with it. So the feminine then says, I will alleviate some of that stress by doing what I can do to take some of that off of you. That looks different ways. It could be physical, it can be emotional, acts of service, physical touch. Is we both, the masculine and feminine, has to find different ways to alleviate some stress from our partner. And see, this is how I see the masculine and the feminine. Y'all forgive me. I got these checks in front of me. I had to sign and I forgot to sign them. And I need to sign them and deposit them. And it just sit here the way I be moving. If I don't do it right now when I just thought about it, it'll be not got done. And this is what we have to be able to do. And so here's what I want you to understand. The feminine and the masculine both need a profound amount of emotional intelligence. And the feminine and the masculine both have to respect the opposite in a very real way. We have to find a respect for the opposite. The feminine and the masculine have to communicate the strengths and the weaknesses. And we have to be open and honest about that. I'll never forget a woman who was making like $250,000 a year was talking to me on a coaching session. And she said, Tony, I make like $250,000 a year. And yes, it's good money. But she said, I'm tired. She said, I'm not a man. I don't enjoy hustling. I don't enjoy going out to get this money. She said, I live in Los Angeles. My rent is $5,000 a month. My car is $3,000 a month. My this, my that, my lifestyle. It's expensive to be in the industry that I'm in. And It's draining. She said, I need a man who earning is what he does. Like that's his thing. He has fun. That's his gift. And she said, then I can make even more money because I won't have stress and pressure on me to go out and create the money. I can create from a space of creativity instead of from a space of pressure. And in that moment, I was like, I get it. She's expressing her feminine. It may not be every woman's feminine, but she's expressing her femininity. That's not her strong suit. That's not her gift, but she's doing it. And she can make it happen if she has to. And then I thought for myself as a man, I could make it happen. And I actually enjoy making money. I enjoy business. I enjoy the grind. I enjoy, the hustle. I enjoy it as a man. My stress doesn't come from my earning. My stress comes from people needing what I've earned when they weren't willing to sacrifice and help earn it. And they're not my responsibilities, meaning when people other than my wife and my kids need the money that I have earned, but they able-bodied and healthy and could be earning themselves, that's where my stress come from. My stress don't come from earning, because I earn more than enough to take care of my family, my household. It's having to take care of other people's household and help out so many other people who may be mismanaging their time and their energy and their money, and then coming to me as a bailout. That's where my stress comes from. So I had to realize, okay, the masculine does this, the feminine does this. And that's why we could come together and we could build together. And I saw a quote and it was so fitting, and it was like it's really shocking to see how many men today want to be treated like a lady. And that is exactly what it is today. A lot of men today don't want to operate in their masculine, don't want to operate as a protector and a provider. And they want the woman to protect and provide equally. But at the same time, the man cannot equally give birth and nurture a child the way a woman can, but want the woman to be held to the same standard that he's held to. And it's just not the same. And then some women want the man to be the breadwinner, to go out and earn a living, but then want him to be just as active in the household. So a woman want the man, it's some women that want the man to go out and earn all the money, but then the woman doesn't want to do household duties like cleaning, mopping, cooking, but want the man to do everything in his masculine, but she doesn't want to complement his actions. Not to say that cooking and cleaning is feminine, but meaning the feminine complements the masculine. So if the masculine is cooking and cleaning, then in that case, the feminine is working and earning. If the feminine is cooking and cleaning, then the masculine is working and earning. And it's not about roles, and it's not about gender roles. It's about complementing each other so that the two come together with a mutual respect of the other and say, in this season, this is what my strength is. This is what your strength is. This is what my weakness is. This is what your weakness is. Let's find a way to come together and complement each other. And so that is what the feminine and the masculine is to me. It's not about the masculine being dominant and controlling and condescending, a tyrant, or a dictator. And that's oftentimes what masculinity is defined as. This dominant being that is my way or the highway. We do what I say, when I say it, and how I say it, and I call all the shots because I'm the man. That's not masculinity. That's ignorance. and it's actually coming from a place of weakness. And femininity is not just being sex on a stick. It's not just worrying about high heels and being seductive with a bunch of makeup and lashes and weave and wigs and thongs and lingerie and sexing a man down just so he go earn more money. That's not femininity. Femininity is because I see a lot of women who call themselves feminine because they seducing their man and sexing their man down, but then they throwing their kids off to a nanny who don't care nothing about their kids. To be in your feminine mean you take care of your kids. Mean you there for your kids and you nurturing and you loving and you giving to those kids. Hey, this is Tony Gaston. I got to go. God bless you. We'll talk soon.